Sonic the Hedgehog is a character that first debuted all the way back in 1991. He was essentially Sega's answer to Mario, and they made a great move with him because he's been loved and growing in popularity ever since. I mean, I remember back when he came out in the olden days of the Sega Genesis, and he seriously has just become more and more popular, becoming comic books and television shows, you name it, and it's had a Sonic thing done with it at this point. And now we are 3 movies into a film series which seems to be quite loved, and the question now is, at the 3rd film, is this going to be another big success, or is this going to be a bump in the road for a franchise that they have already announced a 4th film for? I've seen it, and I'm here to let you know what I thought. Now, before we kick things off, I'm going to say what I always say, which is make sure to visit criticalist.com. We're an entertainment reviewing social platform where you can review movies and television shows and just make friends, hang out, join groups, make lists, you name it, and you can come over here and do it. So make sure to visit criticalist.com and then hit that subscribe button down below. Make sure to hit that, leave us some comments, likes, all that stuff, because it helps our channel grow, and we are really close to hitting that 500 number, so we'd love for you to give us a sub. But on to Sonic the Hedgehog 3, which, like I said, obviously is the 3rd film in the franchise, and this is following a whole saga here. When the first film was announced, it was Ugly Sonic.
And they'll like me for who I am. Not like last time when the internet got one look at my human teeth and burned the place down.
And everyone lost their mind. They didn't want anything to do with them. And the studio did what very few studios do, which is to completely redesign and remake the character and make him into what fans expected. And it was just praised and loved. This is a decision that we don't see happen very often in Hollywood, and so people have kind of rallied behind this series. Even though they're not perfect films, people, I think, even just for what happened with Ugly Sonic, I'm going to go ahead and pull him up here again because good gracious. And then he was even ripped on in another film where they actually did make Ugly Sonic in live action in the Rescue Rangers film, and it's been a wild saga involving this whole Sonic thing. But now we're on the 3rd film, and it's actually directed by the same individual with Jeff Fowler and written by the same guys who have been writing the other movies as well. And basically, all of the cast is back too, but we have Keanu Reeves joining the club, and also we have Kristen Ritter as another character, kind of, sort of, I guess, in this. But I guess up front, I'm going to be a little transparent, and I'm worried I'm going to catch flack for this because I don't know what anybody thinks about this movie yet. We don't have any reviews in Criticalist. I haven't seen any other critics talk about it. I actually got to go to one of these fan screening things that AMC does, and it was a packed full house, and multiple showings tonight and then even into tomorrow are sold out or completely full, at least in the area that I live, which is a good sign. I think it's good for the theater. But like I said, I'm going to go ahead and be honest. I'm a little bit worried here, but I did not enjoy this film very much at all. And I'll give you guys my complaints and let you know my thoughts on it. But I really found this to be a disappointment, especially connected to these other 2 films before it, which are fairly loved. On Criticalist, at least, we're at a 72%, which is a rad. That's a really solid score for the first film. And then actually a 74 for the second. And so it sounds like, at least with 30 reviewers on that one, it sounds like our folks actually enjoyed the second one more, which I personally am not entirely sure about. I think I like the first one the most, but I don't know. The first time I saw the first one, I wasn't crazy about it, but on repeat viewings with the kids, I've liked it more as we've gone along. But one of the things that I wrote in my Criticalist review, which I'll post in tandem with this video, is that this is one of those movies where it's going to be a film that kids probably like quite a good bit, and adults don't. And that's fine. That's a totally fine thing, and it's going to make it a little complicated potentially when it comes to people reviewing this and critics' opinions on it. And you're just going to have probably a more critical audience on this movie because I think it is a much messier film. I think it's a more poorly written film. And in all honesty, I think that the characters, being Knuckles and Sonic, Tails, and the new character of Shadow played by Keanu Reeves, all kind of play as second fiddle to Dr. Robotnik and his basically older twin grandpa, who just it's another version of the character basically, even though it is technically his grandpa in the movie. He gets a lot of screen time in this, and I thought it was to the detriment of the film. Kids love these characters, love Sonic, love all of them, but they seem to kind of play second fiddle to the actual character of Dr. Robotnik and his grandpa. And I think that that was a bad move. And then this movie also, one of the things that I dislike about it the most is that it goes into full-blown Looney Tunes land. This movie is wacky and goofy, and in all honesty, just completely and totally stupid. And so, like I said, kids are going to like it because kids like wacky, goofy, slapsticky things, but this entered a level of stupidity that the other ones didn't, and just breaks the level of realism to a degree that, like, you can't think about this movie. It is not based in any level of reality, even though it takes place in our world, which I thought was a bit interesting, and it's always been a bit of my beef with this franchise as a whole, is that it has deviated quite a bit from what we would expect from a Sonic series, which normally doesn't take place in the real world. It's in this fantastical world with these characters, and not in the normal real world with humans. And obviously making a movie in that way is going to be cheaper and easier, so I get why they do it. But it's always been my biggest beef with these movies, and I think now we've reached a point where it's gotten so wacky and over the top and goofy that it is hard to look at it based in the real world because it's gotten so crazy. So that is definitely my biggest problem with it. Also, I think that another thing with these films is that they've really held up well with the comedy aspect, and that's what a lot of people like about them, is that they're funny. And what Ben Schwartz does with the comedy in this, and then bouncing off of, Idris Elba in the second film, and obviously Jim Carrey. But in this one, I didn't laugh much. I didn't find it very funny, and I thought that 99% of the humor felt really flat and just wasn't very funny, and that's a real bummer because these first two films definitely keep you laughing. And like I said, it was a full house where I was in with that theater. It was packed out, and there was some laughing, but not nearly as much as in the previous films, which I think is going to be a problem for them. So overall, this movie just really didn't land for me. It was a bit of a bummer, and I've been thinking about my critical score and where I would review this, and I think I'm going to put it in the lowest of decents. I don't know if I'll give it a bogus. I feel like I will get slack the way that I did with Red 1 if I put this in bogus, simply because there are going to be people that like this. There was clapping and cheering at several moments, which was a bit odd for me because I just wasn't having a lot of fun in this movie, and so when that happened, it caused me to do this, like, are we sure? Was that clap worthy? Should we clap at that? This wasn't, but maybe that's just me being a curmudgeon, like they said that I was being with Red 1. I don't know. I didn't have a lot of fun with this. I didn't think it was great, but this is also why in these types of movies, I try to bring my kids, because they bring in that perspective, and watch them and let them watch it with me and kind of watch how they interact with the movie and if they're laughing and having fun, and I can gauge it very well off of them. They didn't go with me to this, so I didn't have them as a gauge. But I am curious to see what more of the adult viewers think about this movie as compared to the other ones, because for me, it just didn't land. But as far as all these themes go, this is definitely a fully family, kid-friendly movie, and so don't worry about anything with this. It's more of the same in a lot of ways, but just weaker. So if your kids are into this series, you feel free to take them, go to the theater, but this is one of those where if I had heard this review and talked to myself, I probably would have waited till it came out on home release. And so do with that what you will. I personally, this is totally fine to see at home, but the story is serviceable. It's okay. It's rather predictable, and there are some moments where it tugs on your heartstrings, but as far as the message and the moral of the story, it's basically the same exact thing as the previous two films. It's not doing anything extremely new, and kind of the biggest bummer here is that Keanu Reeves' character of Shadow just doesn't really get enough time to shine. You don't really get to know or love or truly enjoy the character. There are some flashbacks that kind of help build him out and connect to those emotional moments, but you really don't get to see him engage with the other characters nearly enough, and not in any sort of fun and playful way. So that was just kind of a bummer for me. But I want to hear everybody's thoughts about Sonic 3 down in the comments below, and then make sure to drop your review on Criticless. Let's go ahead and get those reviews up so that we can have an official score and let everybody know what they think about it, because I am curious to see if this stands with the likes of the other two, with them being rads. I think that this one is going to be a decent at best from and or for most people. So let me know those thoughts. Make sure to give us that subscribe and download criticless.com and drop your review today. Everybody take it easy. Have a happy holiday, great Christmas, and we will see you guys back after all of the holiday festivities. Everybody take it easy. Later.